We're going to be talking about considering and starting a new nonprofit to address global humanitarian issues. You're going to learn in this session how developing countries and countries in crisis are in dire circumstances that require your help. What is it like, and what are the pros and cons of managing a nonprofit? The good and the bad and the ugly of dealing with impoverished global countries. They're going to learn about ethics, respect, and integrity, and avoiding being the arrogant donor. And then success, making a difference in how to move forward. We're going to be talking with Walter Ulrich. He's the president and CEO at Medical Bridges. His company is a leader in global health equity and life-changing and life-saving nonprofit serving the global poor by providing needed medical supplies and equipments to clinics and hospital graduates. I think that's what it is in the lab. And in the last 24 months, Medical Bridges prepared, staged, and shipped 350 tons of desperately needed medical supplies and equipment valued at more than $17 million to Ukraine, Haiti, Afghanistan, and other developing countries in the Americas, Africa, and Asia. Walter was previously CEO of the nonprofit Houston Technology Center. He's a member of the Texas Advisory Committee of the bipartisan U.S. Global Leadership Coalition, and he was honored with the Global Impact Award at the HITDC 2022 G7 Annual Gala. Previously, the Texas Black Expo bestowed him their Community Builder Award, a former trustee of Stevens Institute of Technology, and he proudly served his country in the U.S. Marine Corps. And we salute Walter for that. And without further ado, we welcome Walter Ulrich to the stage to share his expertise in the area of nonprofits. Walter, great to have you here.
Christopher, thanks so much for the introduction. Thanks for your work with Little Leagues. I thought Sean Pearson did a wonderful job. Sean, if you're still on, congratulations. That was terrific. I'm going to repeat a couple of the most important points she made, but word for word, if you've missed it, go back and look at that on YouTube.
Well, we welcome you, and the stage is yours to go ahead and share what you like to share with us today.
Perfect. Well, I'm excited to be here, and I'm very thankful also to Glorium Technologies for putting this together. What a humanitarian thing for Glorium Technologies to do, to bring us together to talk about health issues and starting nonprofits. As you mentioned, Christopher, in your introduction, the need around the world is dire. There are both challenges and opportunities to be of service to humanity. Those challenges, those opportunities are great. The challenges are difficult. There is bad out there as well as good. But if done right, those people that are interested in starting nonprofits, can energize health and hope for people who have neither. I also want to take a moment to salute Rotary. There are Rotary chapters in almost every city in the US and most cities and countries around the world, where their theme for this year is create hope and help, create hope in the world. And I'm for the health part of that hope. On your screen, you'll see one statistic, but put this in this context. The economies in the developing world will not return to their 2019 economic levels until 2024 or even 2025 because of the impact of COVID. It still impacts the world. And that means at the same time, their needs for healthcare are greater. And there are countries in crisis also requiring specialized healthcare. You can see on this slide the foundation of the USA in terms of infant mortality and life expectancy. By the way, the USA is not the best in the world. In fact, it is toward the bottom of the developing countries, but way better than so much of the developing world. In Haiti, out of every 100,000 live births, 2,200 children are going to die, and about 620 moms are going to die. And that's Afghanistan. And those statistics are before the Taliban took over. the situation has only become more dire. In Haiti, 2,700 deaths of infants out of every 100,000 live births. That's almost 3 out of every 100 live births. And maternal mortality is about 350 out of every 100,000. And these statistics are prior to the earthquake and the assassination of the president. Haiti has now deteriorated to having no active government. Today, we quietly celebrate the 32nd anniversary from 1991 of the independence of the country of Ukraine. And I am convinced that the independence of Ukraine is immutable and assured for many years to come. Since the outbreak of the conflict, February last year, over 1,000 hospitals and healthcare facilities have been attacked in the country of Ukraine. An example of supporting global health is medical bridges. In the upper left-hand corner, you see the delivery of a Texas Aggie medical clinic. That's a 40-foot maritime container that's been built out as a very good clinic or doctor's office and fully equipped by medical supplies and equipment from Medical Bridges, a 501c3. In the case in South Sudan, where earlier this year, 2 of those clinics were delivered, infant mortality isn't measured out of 100,000 live births, but out of 100. Out of every 100 live births in South Sudan, 6 babies and 1 or 2 mommies are going to die. Now, in South Sudan, if we only sent 1 clinic, it would go to the men, and because of their faith, men and women couldn't share the same physicians, the same clinic. So we did send 2, this one for the men, the second one for the women. In the upper middle picture, you see deliveries that were made to Lahore, Pakistan, to a teaching hospital there. Those of you that have followed global news saw that not that long ago, a typhoon and flood attacked Pakistan and inundated 1/3 of the landmass of Pakistan, creating terrible immediate problems for relief and lingering problems that are still creating deaths today. Other photos in here include Ghana and Africa, and in the lower right, Ecuador. Now, there's lots of poverty in Ecuador, but not nearly as serious as some of the other countries in these pictures. And yet, in that case, there is a picture of a 40-foot maritime shipping container filled with medical supplies and equipment from Medical Bridges. And the woman in the yellow dress is the mayor of the city to which that's been delivered. She and the dignitaries are there facing a street filled with people in chairs celebrating the delivery of Medical Bridges surplus. This is quality material that could be used in the United States, but it's not the latest technology. And so it would often end up in landfills. And when she got done with her remarks, 5 women in native Ecuadorian dress were dancing. Now think of that. Ecuador, not the poorest country by any means in the Americas. Our surplus has people dancing in the streets. That's the impact that someone involved with global health can have in countries around the world. I mentioned the Texas Aggie Medical Clinics. The 3 pictures on the left-hand side show the Texas Aggie Medical Clinic being loaded, the interior of one of them prior to the provision of the medical supplies and equipment, and just a small portion of the Texas A&M students that have been involved in that. You know, in Houston, in fact, in Texas, we make fun of Aggies, but this is an incredible, inspirational and inspiring effort they do. Medical Bridges never thought we'd be in the country of the Bahamas, but after Hurricane Dorian swept through and in parts of the Bahamas actually leveled it, we sent 2 containers filled with medical equipment and supplies and 2 fully equipped Texas Aggie medical clinics. And Medical Bridges has been serving the people of Ukraine. So if you are serving global health, there are certain things you need to have. You probably need volunteers, and an organization like Medical Bridges needs lots of volunteers. You heard Sean Pearson talking about it. You need money, you need funding. And for many nonprofits, whether it's medical supplies or whether it's pharmaceuticals, whether it's clothing, whether it's books for education, whether it's facilities for housing, you need in-kind donations. For Medical Bridges, that's mostly medical supplies and equipment. We are in the city with the largest medical center in the world, constant innovation, so we're fortunate to get lots of very meaningful and useful supplies. Are you the right person to start a nonprofit? Ask yourself, what is the mission? Not a generality. What is the specific mission? What is the specific global need that you intend to help alleviate? And why do you care? What is it in your heart that drives you to want to do that? You know, you'll see people who support, for example, cancer nonprofits that are doing work in the cancer space. These are amazing, wonderful nonprofits. Often the people who support them are people who have had relatives that have had cancer or perhaps have been cancer survivors themselves. In Houston alone, there are 20,000 nonprofits, half of which are still active, right? So why do others care about what you care about? Why do they care about that when they have, in Houston alone, 10,000 other nonprofits to choose from? Are there other alternatives? You know, you may, and you have a heart that you want to do something, and I'll use the cancer care example about cancer care. Why would you start a nonprofit addressing some element of cancer care if other people are already doing it? Why would you compete and create an infrastructure, perhaps dilute their work? You're actually undermining the mission that your heart cares about. Find a way to support or be part of that other organization. That's especially true in global health. Global health is complicated, and creating a nonprofit for global health, which I'll talk more about, has lots of complications and issues. I think Sean in the previous session talked about, can you run a business? And all the elements of running the business, communicating, putting together the balance sheet and the operations. Are you a skilled administrator? Can you recruit people? Getting money for a nonprofit is hard. Are you willing to ask for money? When I joined the first nonprofit I did, the one before Medical Bridges, they had done so well raising money, I just assumed those checks were going to keep coming in. But they don't. When you're in most nonprofits, and especially small new nonprofits, you have to retain your funding base every year. And if you're going to grow, you have to not only retain, but grow it, which means you need to continue to talk with all of your donors, let them know how well you're doing, encourage their support, and show gratefulness for it. So it's not just telling the story. It's actually closing the sale. It's actually asking them specifically to write a check. A lot of people are really uncomfortable about that. If you're one of those people, a nonprofit is probably not for you. So you might remember the Mumford & Sons song where there's a line in it that goes, you know, I will use my head alongside my heart. Well, if you run a nonprofit, you got to have the heart, the mission. You got to care, but you also need to apply your head. So what are some of the complexities? Well, one is delivering the primary humanitarian service. In some cases, like Medical Bridges, it's loading containers and getting them into the country with getting through customs, with worrying about corruption, making sure the stuff isn't stolen or misused in one way or another, And it's stuff that when it's delivered, the people in the developing country are able to have the expertise to put it to use. In other nonprofits, you actually have to send people overseas. That is expensive, it's complex, and it's dangerous. I was in Pakistan 2 years ago and ended up being the first car in front of a political demonstration where people were burning tires, right? And Pakistan is a relatively safe country for American visitors. You probably read in Haiti that a nurse was recently kidnapped. Thankfully, she's been released. But there are real dangers in the world. I sure wouldn't go to Haiti today. Foreign governments can be complicated to work with. Customs regulations are amazing. I mentioned Afghanistan earlier. Medical Bridges this week sent 2 shipping containers filled with medical supplies and equipment for a women's and children's hospital in Kabul, Afghanistan. And yet, the government bureaucracy in Mexico is so complicated that we cannot get substantive amount of materials into the country of Mexico, which is our neighbor right across the border. The Foreign Corrupt Practices Act is a meaningful, powerful act and can create frustrations when you're trying to serve people in need because you cannot pay facilitation payments or bribes of any kind, or you can go to jail and at least lose your nonprofit status for years. The tax return for a nonprofit is a 990. It can be complicated and difficult. And many states also have rules and regulations. I already mentioned that donors have to be, and they deserve to be recognized and thanked and brought up to date, often on the bigger donors on a one-on-one basis. But volunteers are also very interesting to manage. They all come with a big heart. But a volunteer that may not have anything to offer still needs to be treated with respect, because otherwise you can have people in the community that have negative things about your nonprofit. A person who runs a nonprofit isn't the final decision maker on a couple of key issues. That's the board of directors, and the board of directors needs to be managed. I make a point of talking to every board member at least 4 times a year, and we do have 4 board meetings a year for which we prepare very carefully. Superb financial management is essential. Many nonprofits failed during COVID for lack of financial management. The heart was there, the mission was there. And IT, for any kind of growing nonprofit, if you don't have IT, you cannot possibly keep up with all the requirements of managing the organization. As I said before, you need a head alongside your heart. By the way, when it comes to the financial management, we're coming up to a political season. Very often when there's a national election underway, a lot of the larger donors will make significant political donations. And so you need to be prepared to have reduced funding in a year of presidential politics like the one that's upcoming. So to kind of sum up, starting a nonprofit is hard. Raising money is hard. Social media is essential to telling the story. Can you do it without diluting the mission of somebody else? Is a new nonprofit the best way for you to contribute? And there are little details like who's going to write the bylaws and who's going to file the IRS paperwork. It can take many weeks and sometimes many months to get the IRS 501c3 or 501c designation you need so that your donors can deduct it from their tax return or do it from their IRS. And finally, starting any business is hard. Running a nonprofit often means you'll be less compensated than you were in the for-profit world. Will your family support you when you do that? Now, if you're ready, move ahead and get started. For example, since January of 2021, so that's now 2.5 years, Medical Bridges has distributed and recycled 500 tons of medical material to 104 countries. We've been the backstop during Harvey was here when Harvey hit Houston. During the peak of COVID, Medical Bridges shipped 131,000 high-quality medical masks to 86 charitable hospitals and rural clinics in 35 counties in Texas, so the rural clinics could stay open. We've learned a lot in 26 years, and we're still learning. Yesterday, we sent another shipment to Ukraine, totaling now $8 million since the beginning of the conflict of medical aid for Ukraine, including 4 of those Texas Aggie medical clinics. One of those clinics today is in front of a bombed hospital in Ukraine, treating the injured and the ill 30 miles from the Russian border. Without that clinic, that wouldn't be happening today. We've grown substantially. We'll do more in 2023, where we serve 33 countries than we did in 2022. If, after what you've heard Sean and the previous speakers say, and my commentary, you're still and you should be committed to global health, or at least to health, find a way to participate. One way is just volunteer. Another way is to get actively engaged with an existing nonprofit. And the third way is to start your own global health nonprofit. And you can be among the small number of organizations like Medical Bridges that are rebuilding countries in crisis, so that together we can be serving the world. I'm Walter Ulrich. I'm very grateful to Glorium Technologies for putting this together. I learned a lot from the previous speakers. I look forward to learning more. It is a pleasure to be with you today. And if there's time for questions, I would be delighted to do that.
Well, Walter, thank you so much. Just really an informative talk that you and insights that you had there. Just, no coincidence why with you and Sean back to back here, just so much value shared. And, and such, really bringing everything to light, the importance of what is the purpose behind nonprofits. We're here to serve. And you really, really clearly demonstrated and illustrate that very, very well. A question came in that says, how can new nonprofits sustain their impact over time?
This is what Medical Bridges has learned to do over 26 years. And I don't think you can sustain a nonprofit by trying to stay flat. You can't stand a pencil on its edge. It either goes one way or the other. I think once a nonprofit has been started, if the mission is successful, the aspiration should be to grow that mission. And in growing the mission, you're attracting new participation. It's really important to continue to, friend raising is more important than fundraising, and fundraising comes first. Once you've done the fundraising, then the fundraising will follow if you're not embarrassed to close the sale and ask for the money. Christopher, does that help? Is that,
or would you? Absolutely. And this is just my question, because I agree when you made this point, fundraising, this is one of the most very important part of the business side of running a nonprofit. Without, like you said, without raising funds, you can't sustain and grow and move forward. What advice would you give to someone when it comes to fundraising? Asking people for money or organizations is not something always easy for people.
I do it every day, and I don't enjoy it. I love talking to our sponsors, our donors, and our board. But when you ask the question for how much, can I count on you for your gift, or what size gift, or will you please support our gala, et cetera, there's a little awkwardness there, but I do it every day. I think the key question is you have to realize you can't tell your story and ask for a check, right? You've got to tell the story. You've got to get their feedback about their level of interest and what they're interested in and work around that. So it is, as Caroline said in the note, it's hard work and a real commitment to do that. Also, I will share that if you're leading a nonprofit, you may love the mission, I don't care what it is, but you end up being the chief fundraiser, unless you're a huge nonprofit like a university. You're the chief fundraiser, you're the chief administrator. You're not spending much time actually doing the end product of the mission, the field work. You're actually running a business, and it's really important. I see Faisal says hi from Pakistan. I think he may know that a few years ago, we did more for the country of Pakistan than we did for any other country because the needs in Pakistan that year were so great. One other thing, and this is really important, and that has to do with it. The way we work, and I'm glad Faisal asked the question, because the way we work in Pakistan is we find an NGO in Pakistan that is in the country, that has people on the ground in the country. That could be Helping Hand for Relief and Development, could be Islamic Relief, it could be somebody else, right? But we don't fly into Pakistan and visit a hospital with a clipboard, check off some things that they might need, fly back to Houston, pack a container of Houston, send it to them and wish them good luck. That is the old-fashioned 1950s arrogant American way of doing things. We know better. You know, a global nonprofit can't have that viewpoint. They have to find partners who are resident in the country and who you can trust and work side by side with, and let them tell you, we consider that when we're serving Pakistan or Haiti or Afghanistan or Ukraine, that we are the guest and the people in those countries are the host, and we owe them the respect that a host deserves. And we are grateful for the opportunity they've invited them into their community.
Wow, great. Great share. You make it so realistic too, and because it is a reality, and not always the most pleasant part when you talk about fundraising, but it obviously it's the lifeblood to keep things going, to keep giving without expectation, yet receiving without resistance. I always say that motto I live by no matter what. So I think wanted to put it out there for the nonprofit world as well. We have a couple minutes until the next speaker. Walter, anything else that you would like to leave everybody here, like any final comment or suggestion to what you shared today?
You know, I have seen over and over and over again really good nonprofit missions fail because of the lack of attention to financial management. And it's not only financial management, but it's also legal management. If you're going to run a nonprofit, be sure for your directors you have directors and officers insurance, because there's all kinds of frivolous lawsuits that can happen at a nonprofit, and you don't want that to come out of your pocket or the pocket of your directors. So you gotta run it like a business, driven by the context of your passion and your heart. To all of you out there, make a difference in the world. Thank you for being part of this summit today. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you so much for your valuable insight and wisdom. We thank you so much for being here.